Hello everyone and welcome back to the Little Quilter. Today we're continuing work on the ugly sweater quilt, and I am going to reveal the next step in this process. So as I was making this quilt, I was thinking about, once all of this is together like it is now, what did I want to do around the border of the quilt? And I came up with this idea of like these little pictures of Christmas kind of bordered, almost like little framed prints of things happening during Christmas. And I decided that I really wanted to do that. And so I went through all of the fabric that I had, and I've gone through and cut out these little squares. And so you can see on this one, it's the little Christmas mug and the little gingerbread cookies. I cut out some of the little Christmas trees to put them in there. And then I wasn't able to get all of those candy wrappers in there, but cutting a few pieces of that. The ones that I really like, which I don't know if I have without already being sewn together, which I'll show you anyways, are some of the ones that have, here's one. The ones that have sort of like that Christmas village design that I had. And so here's this one that has just like the Christmas village with the light pole. Here's a bench, a coffee shop over here. Then you've got the little Christmas tree in the center. And I just love, this was really what I was thinking of like that picture of something happening for Christmas. And so I went through, decided on the size of these based on the size of the borders. So after I had decided on kind of the size of what I wanted the border to be and the size of those squares, which I believe are 2.5-inch squares, I then wanted to frame them. And that is where I went into EQ8's quilting, and I came up with designing my own, not that it's a very extensive, but my own design for keeping that little block in place and then framing it all around. And I went and printed off multiples of these, and then I've just glued these down. That's why there's a little bit of that, so that I could get 4 onto one sheet, made copies of this, and then I've been cutting those and sewing them on. And this is what the copies ended up looking like, and then I just cut them out. Now I'm going to jump to where I have sewn several of these, because this is my little stack of them. And although this little stack right here of these cute little pieces of Christmas are on there, I decided to lay them out to see what I was thinking. And so I'm going to cut to that clip and I'll show you that. So I've laid out some of the little border fabric that I've done. I've got the border all the way around, and then I've got this little border fabric going on here of these little scenes that I really like. But I am having a bit of, just a little bit of a scare of like, is this too much? You know, is this not going to sort of fit? Because this as a whole, I think works great. And I guess, you know, you could in some way say, well, and then that's the end. But I feel like this needs more of a border than what I've got on there. And this idea of doing this came to me, and I just was really so excited about it. And now it's on there, and I'm just really unsure if it's just taking away, adding too much. I'm really not sure, but I'm most of the way through this, and I feel like either way, I think I just gotta finish this. I have to commit. It was in my head. I have to commit to it. Okay, so as you can see, I was a little bit unsure of what to do once I saw these sitting right next to the quilt. I had thought that this little border that I had put on here would kind of be enough to sit those next to, but I think it's too close. There's not enough of a gap between the body of the quilt and this border that's going to be so intense. And I think that in some ways it takes away from the quilt itself. And I feel like it fights with where you want to look. So I still want to use these pieces. I still want to be able to put that on there because I do think it goes with the ugly sweater theme. But what I've decided is to make a bigger border, and so to give more of a break. Also, there is a lot of this bisque fabric in here. So this is the linen bisque fabric by Laundry Basket Quilts, and it's a beautiful fabric, but there is a lot of this just sort of white background with all of these really great popping colors, which is beautiful, but I think it's just too beige to have such a colorful border next to it, and not enough to separate it. So I went and purchased two colors, this dark green, which goes with the dark green of some of these sweaters. So this one right here. And there's another one that it goes really, really well with. And I got a red because, well, this is a Christmas quilt. So green and red. And I'm going to do a border all the way around. I haven't quite decided how thick I want it to be. I might look at that to see, because I'm not sure. I am considering keeping it the same width and adding it, but I think I want it to end up being a little bit thicker because this was 1.5 inches of a border. So once I sew it, it's really only going to end up being like a 1-inch border all the way around, which is a pretty fine border. And so I think this needs a little bit more separation. So I'm going to give, I think I need to do those a little bit chunkier to give that spacing between those pieces so that, you know, it just gives it definition and you kind of have a break and then can look. I'm hoping that this works. You know, maybe I should just, some of you guys are probably saying you should just stop here, just quit, the quilt is finished, find it and be happy. But I really want to do that border. I really like that idea. So let's see how this works. Okay. The other thing that I have kind of figured out is that I probably didn't need to paper piece all of these. I was thinking of this because I wanted everything to be so exacting for these little, you know, pictures of Christmas. And so in my mind, that the only way to make it so exact was to make sure that it was surrounded like this. But I am going to end up with these guys, you know, sitting together like this, right? And what I probably could have done is I could have done it like this. So whenever I've sewn it, it would look like this. And sharing those borders, I could have just done one, you know, sewn a strip together, made a next, sewn it, made next, made next, and then sewn across the top a line and sewn across the bottom a line. Hopefully that makes sense. Meaning, just as I've done this being the top line of that, make a basically a border of sashing, square, sashing, these sashings overlapping, square, sashing, so that you end up with this rather than this. I'm okay with it, and I'm going to continue, so I have to continue doing it this way, or I would have to measure out this size, but then you're going to have a little bit of a difference if you do that, because this is going to be one piece of fabric, kind of like this sashing in between the blocks, right? So this is one piece of fabric, whereas with these, you're going to have a line in between them. They'll still be sewn, but you'll be able to see that line, right? There'll be a seam there. So it's just a different way that you could have sewn this border. And part of the reason I came up with it was that whenever I was doing my quilt math like this, so for those of you going, well, why did you end up doing it this way? And that is because I did my quilt math based on this size block. So that was what I was trying to get, was this size block exactly. And the only way in my mind that I could get this block exactly was to paper piece it. Maybe there would have been a way with that I could have figured it out, but it just was a little bit too much in my mind. And so I just decided to stick with this, make this size block, and move on. I'm going to have to probably adjust this. Unfortunately, whenever I did this, I had that thought of doing these blocks with this border only. And since I'm going to be adding these borders, it's probably going to elongate it, and I don't know quite how much. I'm going to see if I can keep it the same so that I don't get any blocks like cut off at the end so that it looks like this, right? I want my blocks to end up horizontally coming here and then stacking this way as well. So I'm going to have to look and see if I can do that, okay? All right, let's try. All right, so I've decided to cut 3.5-inch squares. I figured if I made the border the 3.5 inches squared all the way around, that basically that would be adding one of those blocks on either edge all the way around. So it'd be like doing multiple layers of the little squares that I want to do. So that's what I have chosen to do. Now my hope, because I hadn't really thought how much bigger I wanted that border to be, but now my hope is that I have enough fabric to make my 3.5-inch border. So I'm cutting all my strips here, and I'm going to sew those together, and then we'll see what we end up with. Hopefully the ability to keep going. If not, you know, it won't be the end of the world. We can still fix it, so. Okay, so I've got 2 strips. I think these strips are going to fit down the length or the vertical length of the quilt. So I'm going to test that out, and then I'm going to have just enough to do the green if this works right. So let's check it out. All right, so here is the quilt with most of the border on. So you can see I was able to get up both sides. I did this top border, and then I got down here, and this is all the fabric I have left. And these pieces are not even together, so you even lose a 1/2 inch there sewing those pieces together with that much to go. So I'm definitely going to have to put the quilt on hold for tonight and head back to the fabric store. I did purchase the same amount of green fabric. I purchased the same amount of red fabric, so I'll have to buy a little bit more red fabric as well, because obviously I'm going to need even more to go around this layer, but I am liking this border. I think that it's giving it a nice definition. It is very bold, but the other side of this is it's an ugly sweater quilt. Your ugly sweater is bold, and the choices in colors that I've made for this quilt have been very bold as well. I think it's a nice contrast. I'm still a little bit nervous about the edge of the quilt and the border of the quilt, but you know what? If I can't use those there, if I don't think they look right, maybe I'll do something fun on the back. So I'm still going to try for it and see what I think about it, but I'm liking this so far. I think that's good. So on hold for now until I get more fabric. Okay, I have another question for you guys. So my plan had been here to go ahead, purchase more fabric, and do the rest of the borders, and then put that final border with my, pictures of Christmas all the way around it. But as I was sitting here looking at the quilt, I've come up with another idea, because my thought was, once I get that final pictures of quilt around the quilt border, I didn't really want it to be cut off by the binding, and so I thought, well, maybe I'll put even another border, maybe another small border all the way around that. And then I was like, well, should I get a different color? Should I do another one? And then I thought about sandwiching those borders. So I want to know what you guys think I should do. Do you think I should sandwich green Christmas border red and then bind around it? Or should I stick with the original plan of the green, red Christmas border and then just bind around that? Let me show you. I've laid out some to see what it would kind of look like. So let me show you that. Okay, everybody. So here again is the quilt laid out. Here is that green fabric. And then I've got one line of that border fabric going all the way around. And of course, these aren't sewn together because I'm not done sewing all of those pieces. And what I'll do here is, let me lay this out. Okay, so obviously the size of that is, ridiculously large. It would not be that. It would be the same size as these together. So if I can, maybe if I shorten it a little bit, that will help you all to kind of see it a little bit better. But what do you think about that? Should I do that? So sandwich it between the green and the red, and then I'll have that going all the way around the quilt with this. I kind of like that idea. I like that that border is kind of set between it. Or should I do it the way that I was planning, which is essentially red or green, red in between this line, this border fabric. And if I do it the green, red Christmas border, should I then add another color on the edge of this, or just bind along that? Okay, give me your thoughts. I think I'm partial to this, but I want to know. Okay, so I'm going to work on getting more fabric, but I want you guys to let me know. What do you think I should do? Should I do, which style of the border fabric should I do? Because I'm not quite sure which one to do. And I want an opinion. I want your guys' opinion to help me with this. It's really interesting kind of making this quilt up as I go, kind of coming up with these different ideas. Not that I'm reinventing the wheel here or doing anything crazy, but when you're not really specifically following a direct pattern, something that you see in your mind, and then you go to put it down and you're like, is that really working with the fabric, with the design? And so this has been a really interesting process, but I'm unsure. I don't know which way I should do it, and I want you guys to help me figure it out, okay? So, as always, I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. I look forward to all of the comments down below. Don't forget, comment down below. Let me know what you think. And as always, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on The Little Quilter. Thanks.